Hello, welcome to Chapter 6, Part 2 on nonverbal communication. And we're going to finish up using our PowerPoints. So, other characteristics of nonverbal communication, although it may not look the same in different culture contexts, nonverbal communication is universal. And we're going to learn, smile is universal. Nonverbal communication can be confusing because in different contexts, we use different nonverbal cues. Nonverbal communication can be intentional, can be unintentional. We can work to have, especially in a public speaking situation, but in most cases, if it's impromptu on the spot meetings, it might be unintentional. And we can often react faster than we think. The face may have a faster expression than the words that you select. Our nonverbal responses, our nonverbal responses communicate our initial reactions before we can process them through language or formulate. And that's why it's said to be fast. Okay, if our spoken responses don't match our nonverbal reactions, we may give away our true feelings. So even surprise can be misunderstood as something else. The eyebrows. I know my students always have a problem with their eyebrows going up, and we don't even know our eyebrows go up. And it usually signifies either not telling the entire story as well, or it can be surprise. So as you can see, it can be confusing. Most people tend to believe nonverbal messages over the verbal messages. I don't know if they believe it, but because it happens fast, it might be your first instinct. Nonverbal communication in terms of space, dress, personal characteristics cause us to make judgments about each other and can contribute to assumed expectations. So if you do talk close to someone, that's space, you're interfering with their personal space. So you may make a judgment upon that. How someone's garb is compared to a suit and a tie may reflect a different opinion of what you think about that person. Certainly if I dress in a way that I want you to know my background or my religion. But again, some people may think that is a positive or a negative. So space, the study of proxemics indicates there are two main aspects of space, territory and personal space, which addresses the concepts of dominance and submission. So personal space is about 18 inches. So you don't really like people 18 inches. So that's why we don't like being in an elevator. But when we do go for romantic, so if we take an interpersonal class, in your intimate space, you don't share that with a workplace environment. And territory, you want to take up as much space as possible, especially in a job interview. So that's why we talk about posture and movement, and having a pen in one hand and a notebook. Look how wide I am right now because I have my bed here, and rather than I'm sitting at a job interview and crumpled up. So time is chronemics, indicates that the value of time varies across different cultures. So I'm very time oriented, American culture, 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So when someone says they'll be there at 9 and they show up, quarter to 10, they're like, yeah, morning. But certain areas, certain cultures view morning as okay. Physical characteristics, we often make judgments about a person's personality or behavior based on physical characteristics. These judgments are often inaccurate. So physical characteristics can go back to the last slide also of, your dress. Okay, body movements, the study of kinesics helps us understand how body movements complement, repeat, regulate, or replace your verbal. And I believe your PowerPoints go into that. But if they, so when I compliment, it's going to not distract. So if I were clicking a pen while I was talking, that's definitely not complimenting it. So I may want to complement my nonverbal words by going slower so that people can understand what I'm saying. A handshake can complement an introduction. I certainly can repeat. If I said two of us are going, that would repeat. A regulate would be a nonverbal gesture into allowing the other person to know when it's time for them to speak, or replace. So, we replace words also. Haptics is touch, and we have 4 different types of touch. We have functional touch, social polite touch, friendship warmth touch, love intimacy touch, and sexual arousal touch. So functional and professional touch. So if you're a doctor, you're going to have a functional and professional touch, different than a teacher or any other work environment. Social polite touch could be the handshake. Friendship and warm touch, if you're a friend and you feel close enough to hug, everybody doesn't need a hug. Love intimacy touch, again, and a sexual arousal touch. So those are very close to the body and are not for every context. Paralanguage is the talk about talk, involves using verbal and nonverbal aspects of speech. So it's your tone, your volume, your pitch, your duration, how you pause, how fast you talk. And then they have what's called a pregnant pause, which is a 5-second pause, is usually used for in acting, or whatever comes after a pause is definitely more dramatic. In our everyday, we use 1-second pauses, especially if we're in a formal speaking situation. 2-second pauses if you're reading a particular quotation or statistics, because the audience needs time to absorb the information. And then in poetry, you may graduate toward 3 and 4 seconds. If you listen to books on tape, you would hear longer pauses. But the pause is really essentially so that the audience, if it's a formal situation, or the listeners understand what has been said and can react. Artifacts, forms of decorative ornamentation that are chosen to represent concepts. So this can cause a conflict again, but I'm married, but I never wear my wedding band. I don't think it's necessary for people to understand my personal life, but others do. Environment involves the physical and psychological aspects of a communication context. So context is the environment. So your kitchen is different than your workplace setting. Visual aids are now, the reason why we use visual aids is to contribute to effective intercultural communication. So PowerPoints obviously are in that ballpark of intercultural communication, but we're not always using PowerPoints. But I think this is more toward your workplace environment so that your ideas can be easily understood by complementing your verbal with visual aids. So it does make your message more interesting, especially if you're adding a graph or some kind of picture, because it illustrates more than just what the words are saying. It can enhance credibility, especially if you're using researchers and names. And again, this is probably not in your everyday realm. This would probably be more in a workplace environment. Serves as guides or transitions. It actually allows time, the audience time to come up with that, question that needs to be, giving them time to think. Communicate complex or intriguing information. Again, graphs can be an easier way to visualize statistics rather than just throwing numbers at people. It does reinforce the message, reaching different cultures, and how we understand words, again, are limited. So the visual aids will complement. It does help the listener. And the purpose of each visual aid should be clear and almost speak for itself. But we just want to make sure that you're not just creating a visual aid for creating a visual aid's sake. But again, see the print on this. If you are going to use a visual aid of a word that you think the definition needs to be up there because they're unfamiliar with it, make it very clear like this. But if I were giving a formal speech, this is too wordy for me. Yeah. So some of this can be replaced by other cues. Or I can not write the sentences and just do like keywords, because keywords are like lists and your brain remembers lists. The visual information of each element's proximity to the other add information to the message, increasing its intercultural effectiveness. Okay, so it's like a thread. You're sewing this together to unify it. And sometimes when you use PowerPoint, especially if I use some kind of PowerPoint aid, like we have PowerPoint designers, you can have every PowerPoint have the same type of border or picture. So you would lump these four together by securing a picture next to it. Colors carry meanings in cultures. So we want to make sure you're not overly colorful. And when I do my PowerPoints, again, it's mostly black and white. But if I'm talking about 4 of one kind and 5 of the other, I may use some kind of abstract pink on one side and 4, because it aids to the memory. And it's a memory jog technique. So how to improve your nonverbal, learn more about diverse cultures. And that's why you're in college, because we can't ultimately know about every culture, but we can certainly understand, according to what we read, which cultures are, monochronic, polychronic, and this helps us understand how people behave, as well as all the other ones that we had talked about. Enroll a coworker to observe how you communicate. Again, we always learn things through observation. So sometimes if you react to something, step outside from yourself and observe yourself. Was this beneficial? Was it, did I hinder the communication? So the next time it might happen, you know how better to react, not to be misunderstood. When you observe how people communicate, look for trends across a specific type of nonverbal communication. So I'm a teacher, and if I teach in front of the classroom, I'm a professor. So I'll look and I kind of know if somebody's not understanding something by their facial expression, because I've been teaching for quite a few years. Be present in the moment. Do not own, so you want to engage and show people you're listening and not, nodding your head too much. But mindfulness means to listen with a sense of being present in the moment. So not on your phone, please. Kindness, openness, and awareness. So when you're speaking back, especially to people that you're unfamiliar with, coworkers, again, people you just met, slow down. Use a softer tone. The brain loves honey. It doesn't like the vinegar. So keep all this in mind, learn the new terms, and this is your last video lecture. So chapters 7, 8, and 9, you will be reading and understanding the material from the red word. And then you'll be not having a test on that, but you will be writing papers. So we'll see how you apply all the information in a researched format essay in the remaining chapters. But good luck on this test.